Time to check in with Chris Dimakos. He is our CJAD 800 legal contributor. And today we're going to start by talking about an interesting story. See, a couple of people complaining about this lately. So a woman in the West Island gets a ticket for $103, not because she is parked illegally on a city street. She gets ticketed in a private parking lot. Now, for those of us who've ever been through this experience, right, and I remember this happening to me one time when I was trying to walk into a pharmaprix. This was around the Outwater Market, and there's a giant private parking lot there. And I went somewhere else first and not into the pharmaprix first. I came back, and I had a ticket on my car. So I guess the first part of this is, how serious is this? And by the way, this is not the city or police ticketing you. This is a private contractor who's, I guess, responsible for keeping things moving. You have to pay this ticket, or what's your defense in a case like this?
Right. So I think before, just to begin, you hit the nail right on the head by saying this is not a parking attendant giving you a ticket or a police officer. This is a private company that hired employees, whether they're considered security or whatever their term is. They're giving you a ticket that is basically their position on you misusing their private property. It is completely different than a regular parking ticket. A regular parking ticket, if you get one and you don't contest it, well, there is rights that the city has to be able to affect your driver's license, your registration, and they all have rights when it comes to disturbing, like I said, your rights with regards to your license. But when you deal with a private company on a parking lot, there's no such thing. So that being said, it's like as if someone else just says you owe me $100 for whatever reason they believe it is. Do you have to pay it? Well, that all depends. If the company wants to take you to small claims court and they want to make a claim out of it, they could, but they would have to be able to prove that you knew what the conditions were before you went into that parking lot, and that's very difficult for them to do. So the legal answer is technically they could, but in reality, it's very rarely pursued, okay? And if you're concerned about it, then what I recommend you do is you pick up the phone, you call the company, and you say, I got this ticket. I have no idea what I did wrong. There's no sign that tells me what I did beforehand, what I can and cannot do. I don't want to pay this ticket. I'll offer you $10, $20 if you want it to go away. Otherwise, there's a lot of negotiation power there because it's not a traditional ticket that's given by the police or a parking authority. So I would, they do it. It's a deterrent. Sometimes if you rack up a lot of them, they might say, you know what, it's worth it for us to go to court with this person, but it's very unlikely that it happens.
So I have two questions based on what you just said. Number one, I didn't know you could actually, sort of negotiate one of these things if you wanted to and pick a number, $10, $20, and see if they'd be happy with that. And secondly, what happens if, first of all, you mentioned, you didn't see a sign. If there are signs all over the place telling you can't park there, can you still use that as a defense? And do you still have to pay that ticket?
Right. So if there are signs everywhere, that would bolster their case in saying the terms were very clear to everyone who's there. It's very obvious that you cannot park here or that you can only park here if you are using one particular store or, you can't jump around to different stores. That being said, again, for them to claim this money from you, it's very simple for the city. The city doesn't have to go to court. The city can just start going after your license, and it can affect your driving record. They don't have that power. So it's a private institution that believes you owe them money because you misused their private property. What they have to go to collect that money, it requires a lot of work on their end. So what I would say is most of the time they don't go through that work because it's not worth it. But all the more reason to pick up a phone and say, I got this ticket. I don't know why I got it. I don't want to have to deal with this. I'd like to deal with my issues. I'll offer you 10 cents on the dollar if you want. Otherwise, I'm not paying a penny. It works. It does work because if they have no intention of pursuing it in court for that ticket, well, then they might as well just take whatever money's offered to them and close the file.
Last question on this, and then I'll move on. What happens if beyond a ticket, you get towed? Then what? What does that change?
Well, the towing is different because the towing now, you're required to pay fees to get your car back. Now the towing company has your car, and they have been empowered to tow your car because you are on private property. That's a lot more difficult. Then then the ball's in your court. You have to claim the money back from the private parking lot, saying, "Hey, you towed my car you had no right to." Then you have to take the initiative to go to small claims and get that money back. So I would say if you get towed, if you want, you can go through the steps and try to get your money back through small claims court. If you think that you should never have been towed in the first place, if the signs were not clear, if there was no language anywhere telling you what you could and couldn't do in that parking lot, then you can go ahead to small claims court. But most people just say it was a bad day. They're not going to park there again. Mm-hmm. They won't keep their business to that parking lot again, and then go somewhere else. Yeah. But again, it's a lot different if you get towed, because then you have the burden of taking the initiative versus getting a ticket where if you don't pay that ticket, it's up to them to try and pursue it in court.
Which makes sense. I get that part. Yeah. But I know sometimes, just trying to find out where your car is an issue, right? That's how they get you to pay.
Right.
But there have been other times, I know somebody who had their car towed and the car was just basically moved 3 or 4 blocks away. If you know where your car is when it was towed, you can just go get your car, and then
yes.
What?
Well, then you could. Then the whole issue of the towing, it goes away, because what the tow company has as leverage is they have your car, right? So in order to find your car, you have to contact the towing company, and they'll only let you know where it is once you pay them the money. But that being said, if you know where your car is, well, then you could take your car, and then if they feel like you owe them money, they would have to take you to court to collect.
Yeah, so it's not you anymore. Again, the onus is on them. Okay,
exactly.
All right. Real quick before we run out of time, just to talk about the second story here, without getting into too much detail, a youth hockey coach, this is in Quebec, suspended after forcing players, and some of them, by the way, as young as 10 years old apparently, to inhale those smelling salts. You see the Canadians players on the bench sometimes take a quick hit of this. These are little kids. What kind of trouble is he in now?
Right. So they've been suspended. I mean, that's for the administration part. They've been suspended. I believe the assistant coach got suspended, the one that was giving the smelling salts to the kids. These are kids who are 10 years old. My son plays in the very same league as the kids that were dealing with this. They are young, and I could tell you it's not just for sports coaches or for teachers. Anytime you are entrusted with parental authority, when the parents leave their kids off at the rink, at the baseball diamond, or at school in the classroom, you have to remember that you are now entrusted with parental authority. And if you do something that a parent that's looking out for the kids wouldn't do, you can get yourself into serious trouble. Now, I don't think we've heard the end of this. I know that there's been some administration and the associations have taken steps to suspend, but I just can't see this going away anytime soon, because, again, smelling salts, medically speaking, if they're misused, especially on kids, can cause some damage. So I'm not sure if you heard the end of the story yet, but there's no question that the Hockey Quebec and I think it's the West Island, they're coming up publicly and saying this is frowned upon, this is not permitted, no substances should be given to the kids whatsoever. So we'll see where this goes. But legally speaking, this could get a little more dicey in the future, if I had to predict.
We leave it at that. Chris, want to thank you. Appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.